Stop studying English the hard way. What if I told you that everything you've been doing to learn English is actually making it harder? There's a 25-minute trick that completely changed how I understand English. And by the end of this video, you're going to wonder why nobody ever taught you this before. So here's the thing, most people spend years trying to learn English. They memorize grammar rules, they do boring exercises, they write down thousands of words in notebooks. And you know what? They still can't understand native speakers. They still freeze up when someone asks them a simple question. But there's a group of people who learned English way faster. And they all did one thing differently, something so simple that when I first heard about it, I thought it was too good to be true. But I tested it for 30 days straight, 25 minutes every single day, and the results were crazy. I'm going to break down exactly what this trick is, why it works so well, and how you can start using it today. And I promise you, this is completely different from what you've heard before. Let me ask you something. How many years have you been learning English? 1 year, 2 years, maybe 5 or even 10 years? And be honest with me. Can you watch an English movie without subtitles and actually understand what's happening? Can you listen to a podcast and follow along without getting lost? If you answered no, you're not alone. Millions of people around the world are stuck in the same place. They know the grammar, they know thousands of vocabulary words, they can pass tests. But when it comes to real English, the English that native speakers actually use, they're completely lost. And here's why that happens. The traditional way of learning English is backwards. Think about it. When you were a baby, did your parents sit you down and teach you grammar rules? Did they make you memorize verb conjugations before you could speak? Of course not. You learned by listening. You heard people talk around you every single day, and slowly your brain started to figure out the patterns. But when people learn English as a second language, they do the opposite. They start with grammar books. They memorize lists of irregular verbs. They study rules about when to use the or a. And all of that stuff is important, but it's not how your brain actually learns language. Your brain learns language through pattern recognition. It needs to hear the same words and phrases over and over again in different contexts. It needs to see how native speakers actually use the language in real situations. And most importantly, it needs repetition. Lots and lots of repetition. The problem is, most English learners don't get enough repetition of the right kind. They might listen to English sometimes, but it's random. One day they watch a movie, the next day they listen to a song. The day after that, maybe they read an article. There's no system. There's no consistency. And without consistency, your brain never gets the chance to recognize the patterns. This is why people can study English for years and still struggle with basic conversations. They're learning facts about English instead of actually training their brain to understand and use English naturally. It's like trying to learn how to swim by reading a book about swimming. You can memorize all the techniques, but until you actually get in the water and practice over and over again, you're never going to be a good swimmer. So what's the solution? How do you train your brain to understand English the way native speakers do? That's where this 25-minute trick comes in. And I'm going to tell you exactly what it is in just a second. But first, you need to understand why this specific amount of time matters so much. Okay, so let me explain this trick step by step. It's called active immersion listening, and it's based on how polyglots, people who speak multiple languages fluently, actually learn new languages fast. The basic idea is simple. Every single day, for exactly 25 minutes, you're going to listen to the same piece of English content. Not different content every day, the exact same content. And I know what you're thinking. Oh, wait, listen to the same thing every day? Won't that be boring? Yeah, it might feel boring at first. But here's what happens when you do this. And this is where the magic starts. On day one, you listen to a 25-minute conversation in English. Maybe it's a podcast episode, or a YouTube video, or even just two people talking. And you know what? You probably won't understand everything. Maybe you catch 30 or 40% of what they're saying. Some words you recognize, some you don't. Some sentences are clear, others sound like gibberish. That's totally normal. On day two, you listen to the exact same thing again. And something interesting happens. You start to catch words you missed before. Sentences that sounded confusing yesterday suddenly make more sense. Your brain is starting to recognize patterns. It's connecting the sounds to meanings. By day 3 or 4, you're understanding way more. Maybe now you're catching 60% of the content. The speaker's accents don't sound as strange anymore. The speed doesn't feel as overwhelming. Your brain is adapting. By the end of week 1, you know this audio so well that you can predict what's coming next. You understand maybe 80 or 90% of it. And here's the crazy part. Without even trying, without writing anything down or studying grammar, you've absorbed hundreds of words and phrases. They're now stored in your brain, ready to be used. But why does this work so much better than traditional studying? Let me break down the science behind it. First, repetition is the key to memory. Your brain doesn't remember things after hearing them once. It needs multiple exposures. Scientists call this the spacing effect. When you review the same information multiple times over several days, your brain moves it from short-term memory to long-term memory. This is why cramming for a test doesn't work. You might remember the information for a few days, but then it disappears. But when you review the same content daily, it sticks forever. Second, context is everything. When you listen to real conversations, you hear words being used in natural contexts. You hear the tone, the emotion, the rhythm. You hear how native speakers actually speak, with all their filler words, their contractions, their slang. This is completely different from reading example sentences in a textbook. In a real conversation, you learn not just what a word means, but how it feels, when to use it, and how it connects to other words. Third, your brain loves patterns. Human brains are pattern recognition machines. That's how we learn literally everything in life. When you listen to the same content multiple times, your brain starts to notice patterns in the language. It figures out which words usually go together. It learns the natural rhythm of English sentences. It starts to predict what's coming next. And all of this happens automatically without you even thinking about it. Fourth, listening is the foundation of language. Think about how much time babies spend just listening before they ever say their first word. It's thousands of hours. They're building a massive database of sounds, words, and patterns in their brain. Only after all that listening do they start to speak. And when they do speak, it comes naturally because their brain already knows how the language works. But most English learners skip this step. They try to speak and write before their brain has enough input. It's like trying to build a house without a foundation. You need to fill your brain with thousands of hours of listening before you can expect to speak fluently. Now, you might be wondering, why 25 minutes specifically? Why not 10 minutes or an hour? 25 minutes is the sweet spot for several reasons. First, it's long enough to give your brain substantial input. You'll hear hundreds of words and dozens of different sentence patterns. But it's also short enough that you can stay focused without getting mentally exhausted. Your brain can maintain full attention for 25 minutes, which means you'll actually absorb what you're hearing instead of zoning out. Second, 25 minutes is realistic. Most people can find 25 minutes in their day. Maybe it's during your commute or while you're cooking dinner or right before bed. It's a commitment you can actually stick to, which is crucial because consistency is more important than duration. Listening for 25 minutes every single day is way more effective than listening for 3 hours once a week. Third, there's something called the Pomodoro technique in productivity research. It turns out that the human brain works best in focused chunks of about 25 minutes. After that, attention starts to drop. So by keeping your listening sessions to 25 minutes, you're working with your brain's natural rhythm instead of against it. Now let me tell you exactly how to do this technique the right way, because there are some important details that make all the difference. Step 1 is choosing the right content. This is super important. You want something that's at the right level for you. Not too easy, not too hard. A good rule is that you should understand about 60 to 70% of it on the first listen. If you understand less than that, it's too difficult and you'll get frustrated. If you understand more than that, it's too easy and your brain won't learn much. The content also needs to be interesting to you. If you're bored by what you're listening to, you won't stick with it for 7 days. So choose something you actually care about. Maybe it's a conversation about your hobby, or an interview with someone you admire, or a story that captures your attention, and it needs to be natural English, not scripted lessons where people speak slowly and clearly. Real conversations where native speakers talk at normal speed with natural pronunciation. This is what your brain needs to get used to. Step 2 is active listening. This is not background noise. You're not putting this on while you scroll through your phone or watch TV. For these 25 minutes, listening to English is your only task. You need to be fully present and focused. Close your eyes if that helps. Really try to understand what's being said. When you hear a word you don't know, don't stop and look it up. Just keep listening. Your brain will figure out the meaning from context if you hear it enough times. Some people like to listen while walking or doing light exercise. That's fine because those activities don't require much mental focus. But avoid doing anything that splits your attention, like reading or having conversations. Step 3 is daily consistency. You must do this every single day for at least 7 days with the same content. Missing even one day breaks the pattern and makes it much less effective. Your brain needs that daily repetition to move the information into long-term memory. Think of it like watering a plant. If you water it once and then forget about it for a week, it dies. But if you water it a little bit every day, it grows strong and healthy. Step 4 is paying attention to your progress. After each listening session, take just 1 minute to notice what's different. What did you understand today that you didn't understand yesterday? Which phrases are starting to sound familiar? You don't need to write anything down. Just mentally acknowledge your progress. This does two things. First, it helps you stay motivated because you can see yourself improving. Second, it trains your brain to actively look for patterns and connections. Step 5 is moving on after 7 days. Once you've listened to the same content for a week, it's time to choose new content and start the process again. You'll notice that with each new piece of content, you understand more on the first listen. That's because your brain is getting better at processing English. The patterns you learned from the previous content help you understand new content faster. Over time, maybe after doing this for 3 months or 6 months, something amazing happens. You start to understand almost everything you hear in English. Native speakers don't sound fast anymore. Their accents don't confuse you. You can watch movies and TV shows without subtitles. You can listen to podcasts and actually follow along. Your brain has been trained to process English naturally. And here's an extra bonus that most people don't expect. When you train your listening this intensively, your speaking improves automatically. All those phrases and patterns you've been absorbing start coming out when you speak. You sound more natural because you're using the same expressions that native speakers use. Your pronunciation gets better because your brain has heard the correct pronunciation thousands of times. Now, I want to share something with you that most English teachers will never tell you, and this might be the most important part of this entire video. The reason this 25-minute trick works so well is not just about the repetition or the time commitment. It's about something deeper. It's about changing the way you think about language learning completely. Most people approach English like it's a puzzle they need to solve. They think if they just learn enough grammar rules and memorize enough vocabulary, suddenly they'll be fluent. But that's not how it works. Language is not a puzzle. It's a skill, like playing an instrument or riding a bike. You don't become a good guitar player by reading about music theory. You become good by playing the guitar every single day. You don't learn to ride a bike by memorizing the physics of balance. You learn by getting on the bike and falling down and getting back up until your body figures it out. English is exactly the same. You don't become fluent by studying about English. You become fluent by using English and exposing yourself to English every single day until your brain naturally adapts. This 25-minute trick forces you to stop treating English like a school subject and start treating it like the skill it actually is. You're training your brain through consistent daily practice, just like you would train your body at the gym. And here's the breakthrough moment that changed everything for me personally. I realized that I didn't need to understand every single word to understand the message. When native speakers talk to each other, they don't catch every single word either. They use context, they read body language, they fill in the gaps, and that's okay. That's how real communication works. Once I stopped obsessing over understanding 100% and just focused on getting the general meaning, listening became so much easier. I relaxed. I started enjoying it. And ironically, by not trying so hard, I started understanding more. This is what happens when you do the 25-minute trick consistently. You stop fighting against the language and start flowing with it. You trust your brain to figure things out. And it does. So let me put everything together for you in a simple way you can actually use starting today. The 25-minute trick is this. Choose one piece of natural English content that's about 25 minutes long. Something interesting that you understand about 60 to 70% of on the first listen. Then listen to that exact same content every single day for 7 days straight. Give it your full attention during those 25 minutes. Don't multitask, don't check your phone, just listen. After 7 days, choose new content and repeat the process. Do this consistently for months, and your English listening skills will transform. You'll understand native speakers easily. You'll absorb vocabulary and grammar naturally without studying. And your speaking will improve automatically because your brain has learned the patterns of English. This works because it's how your brain actually learns language. Through repetition, through pattern recognition, through massive amounts of comprehensible input. It's the opposite of traditional studying, and that's exactly why it works so well. The people who succeed with this method are not the ones with the most talent or the best memory. They're the ones who commit to doing it every single day. Consistency beats intensity every time. 25 minutes daily for 6 months will give you better results than 3 hours once a week for a year. And the beautiful thing is, this costs nothing. You don't need to buy any courses or apps or textbooks. You just need content in English, which is everywhere on the internet for free. YouTube videos, podcasts, interviews, audiobooks. The world is full of English content waiting for you, so the question is not whether this will work. The question is, are you willing to commit 25 minutes a day for the next week to try it? Because I can tell you from my own experience and from seeing hundreds of other learners use this method, if you do it consistently, your English will improve faster than you ever thought possible. You've spent years studying English the hard way. Maybe it's time to try something different. Something that actually works with your brain instead of against it. Something that makes English 5 times easier. Just like I promised at the beginning, the choice is yours. You can go back to doing what you've always done and get the same results you've always gotten. Or you can try this 25-minute trick starting today and see what happens when you finally give your brain what it actually needs to learn. English naturally. If this helped you, watch the next video where I share the exact content I used for my first 30 days. You can start today, right now. Pick an English podcast about something you love and start listening. Find a YouTube video and practice shadow speaking for 5 minutes. Message a language exchange partner and schedule your first conversation practice. The 90-day clock starts the moment you take action. If this helped you, hit subscribe for more fluency techniques that actually work.